Hi there, Steve Kaufman here. I often get asked about learning several languages or more than one language at once. And do I do it and what do I think about it? And usually my answer is that I don't, that I focus on one language at a time. And I think that's probably still my answer if I am starting from scratch with a language. And by that I mean if I were to start studying Turkish. However, I now find myself in a situation where I'm going to be doing four languages over the next 6 months or so. So I thought I would talk a bit about it. First of all, I want to really learn Korean. About 5, 6, 7, can't remember, 7 years ago, I spent about 6 months doing a lot of listening and reading of Korean, part-time, an hour a day. And of course, I'm helped in Korean because I have Japanese and Chinese. And I'm at the point where I can say a few things and basically don't understand anything that's said back to me or very little. I can't really maintain a conversation, but I have some sense of how the language works. I would say that in Korean I'm an A, somewhere between A1 and A2 on the European scale. Like I'm a beginner. Now, I want to go after Korean and I want to do a 5 days to fluency thing like I did with Czech. I want to go to Korea in the spring and hopefully in 5, 6 days really, improve my Korean. So that's my number one focus. But I definitely want to work on and improve my Russian and my Czech. So Korean, Russian, and Czech, those are languages that I've really only started on, in the last 6, 7 years. So I'm going to tell you what I've been doing. And I also, because I was in Germany and I was a little bit disappointed at my German, I've decided to put a little more effort into German. So how am I going to go about sort of juggling these four languages? First of all, last week was my first week of starting to do this. And fortunately or unfortunately, I injured my back playing hockey on Tuesday. At the end of the game, I kind of pulled my back. So I didn't play hockey Wednesday and I didn't play hockey Friday. So that means there's about 3.5 hours there that I have available for language learning that I would otherwise have spent playing hockey. So I actually did quite a bit more than I usually do. And so what did I do? Well, first of all, let's talk about Korean. Because I have the advantage in Korean that, first of all, I've spent some time at it before. I can, with difficulty read the Hangul, but I still get lots of stuff wrong, especially if I don't have a context. But I know the Chinese characters, the Japanese characters. And so for me, reading the very informal Korean is in fact a lot more difficult than reading more formal sort of newspaper type articles, except that I don't know what the characters are. So I actually emailed Ross King, who's a professor of Korean at, in fact, was head of the Asian Studies Department at UBC, and I said, is there any easy Hangul to Hanja converter so that I could take these texts written in Hangul and instantly see where all the characters are? And he said he's not aware of any, so I kind of struck out there. But when I was in Japan 2 years ago, I bought a number of books on learning Korean because I tend to buy books, even though I'm very much committed to Link and I love learning on Link. It's not the only thing I use. I also use books, and I think most people should and enjoy having a variety of tools to go at more or less the same content from different directions. And I always recommend someone starting at Link to get a starter book in your own language. If it's English, get some Teach Yourself. Go through some of that as well. It's books that you have lying around when you don't want to be looking at your iPad or listening to your MP3 player or doing something on the computer. You just want to read a book. So anyway, I bought this book, which is Kankokugo Sentango, which means 1,000 words in Korean. The advantage of this thing is that it has, because it's done for you can't see that, it's done for the Japanese learner, all of the words where there are Chinese characters, Hanja, these Hanja show up. So there's 1,000 words here, I'm reading through it, and it's got examples for each word, and I get to see the character. So I'm hopeful that as I plow through this thing, I'm about halfway through, I've done about 500, that I'll start to get used to the patterns of how the Chinese or Japanese pronunciations of these Chinese characters change in Korean. So that's one thing I'm doing. And I also, when I was in Korea back 2 years ago, I bought these two books, which are by a Professor Im or Hayashi, and they're very, very good. And it's Hangul Bumpo, like Korean grammar, and the other one is called Hangul Kaiwa. And they come with CDs, and I've long since put them into iTunes. And they're just a series of short sample examples of how the Koreans speak in their everyday speech, different patterns. And of course, I've always felt that language should be taught as patterns. You know, I've got this other book for Russian, 53 patterns in Russian. Well, this Hangul Bumpo is just a series of patterns with 5 examples of each, and it just keeps on going. And I read through it, and I read through it, and I listen to it. And it's all in the background, and slowly I get a sense of how the Korean language works. And then I go to Link, and I either work on easy content, which I don't find that interesting. You know, hi, how are you? What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Or there are some more difficult texts. There's a news series at Link, and of course I have to save every third word, but hopefully in my Naver dictionary I can find the character and put it in. And I'm also reading my own book, the book that I wrote about language learning called The Linguist, A Language Learning Odyssey. I'm familiar with the book. I'm reading it in Korean at Link and saving words and phrases. So all of that amounts to a fair amount of time. Plus I walk around listening to stuff. So, you know, I've always got my old Nano. So, however, the problem is now I can't spend all my time on Korean because I also want to work on the other languages. So today I decided I would make Russian my second language. So I went into Echo Moskwy, my favorite source, and I downloaded 3 interviews into iTunes, so I have them on here. And then I downloaded the text, because at Echo Moskwy you get the text, imported it into Link, and I went through all the blue words, the words that are new to me, many of which I know or are forms of words that I know or their names. But anyway, I go through them all. Bing, 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 bing. I get rid of anything that's blue, which is stuff that I haven't seen before on the system. So now I have only yellow words. And I did that for 3 articles. One was an interview with Alexey Venediktov. One was an interview with Gary Kasparov, talking about the new opposition group that's formed there. And another one was Yulia Latinina, can't remember her name, Code Dostupa, which she always has the most rather exotic theories on different things. But it's good stuff, so I'm listening and reading. So I then am able, once I have gone through and gotten rid of all the blue, so there's only yellow, then I can read it on my iPad. So I can read and I can listen at the same time. And I do that not because I don't understand it, but because I want to really nail down the structures. So I'm looking at the, you know, v tom čísle or whatever it might be, that some of those phrases or some of the case endings or сделать or делать, whatever. It helps when you're actually looking at it too. It helps you notice. Okay. So I did that. I did part of it while on my stepping machine, so I was able to work it in with some exercise, and part of it just sitting there. It's very comfortable, and so forth. So tomorrow will be my Czech day, and I typically go to Jak to vidí, which is a Czech radio program, where they also have the interviews on Echo Moskwy tend to be about 30 minutes long. The interviews at Jak to vidí are about 20-25 minutes long. So there again, I will download the sound and then take the text into Link, get rid of all the blue words, and then I can sit and read them on the iPad. I may not go through the whole article, depends how interesting it is. I may not listen to the whole article, but I will get some exposure to Czech tomorrow. So the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to step up my talking. I had a Russian conversation with Alena, one of our Russian tutors, and I really stumbled. A lot of Czech words came out, but it got better as I went along. I also had a conversation with Yarda in Czech. So next week I'm going to do the same. I'm going to have maybe 1 or 2 conversations in Russian, 1 or 2 conversations in Czech. So I'm going to be doing my input activity, and I'm also going to have regular conversations, typically 30 minutes long, in both Russian and Czech. And I am also going to start speaking regularly with Reinhard. and perhaps other German tutors at Link, and I've already signed up for a discussion with him. I also decided to use German more, so in some of my follow-up emails with people that I met in Berlin at the Sprachen und Beruf, I wrote my email in German, I put it in for correction. Reinhard came back within 24 hours with the thing corrected, and then tomorrow, in time for their Monday, I'll be sending the emails out to Germany. And where I have time, I'm going to read the German newspaper, but I'm not going to put as much time into German as I'm going to put into Czech and Russian, and of course into the Korean. So the goal is that my Russian and Czech should not deteriorate, should continue to improve, that German should improve, and that next spring sometime I'll be able to converse in Korean. I'm not going to start talking to Korean tutors at Link until I get my Korean up to a level where I can maintain my end of the conversation. But I have had someone in Korea who wants to do English with me at Link, so I will encourage her or her son. She's got a son who works. I'm not quite sure what their ages are, but between the two of them, I'm sure I can find a willing Korean language exchange partner in exchange for my English. But I'm going to have to wait a few months until my Korean is up to snuff. So there you have it, a quick rundown of what I'm doing in terms of trying to maintain or improve in 4 languages. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.